Most travelers come to Hungary for Budapest. But beyond the famous skyline are thermal waters flowing beneath the ground, villages where life moves at a slower pace, vineyards stretching across rolling hills, and landscapes that feel completely different from the capital. And most visitors never see all of it. Because Hungary isn't just a city destination. It's a country filled with surprising contrasts that quietly reveal themselves the further you travel from the places most people already know. What people think Hungary is. When people think of Hungary, they usually think of Budapest, the Parliament building, the Danube River, and the famous thermal baths. And that version absolutely exists. The Parliament building is one of the most photographed buildings in all of Europe. The chain bridge connects two halves of a city that feel almost like separate worlds. And the thermal baths draw visitors from every corner of the globe, offering a bathing culture that has defined Hungarian daily life for centuries. But Hungary stretches far beyond its capital. The country is filled with wine regions, lakes, historic towns, and landscapes that many international visitors completely overlook. Once you move beyond Budapest, Hungary starts to reveal a different personality. One that feels quieter, more grounded, and more deeply connected to the rhythms of rural European life that have shaped this part of the continent for generations. Budapest, the anchor. For many travelers, Budapest becomes the starting point. Often called one of Europe's most beautiful capitals, the city is divided by the Danube River into two distinct halves. Buda on the west, rising steeply across forested hills and castle districts, and Pest on the east, stretching flat across the plain in a grid of grand boulevards and neoclassical buildings. Historic architecture dominates the skyline, much of it dating from the Austro-Hungarian period when Budapest was one of the great capitals of a vast empire. Thermal baths remain part of everyday life, not simply tourist attractions but functioning social spaces where locals gather to relax, talk, and continue a bathing tradition that stretches back to Roman times. Budapest feels grand, but it's only one chapter of Hungary's story. Because beyond the city, the country changes quickly. Lake Balaton, Hungary's inland coast. Southwest of Budapest lies Lake Balaton, the largest lake in Central Europe. For many Hungarians, this is where summer happens. Small resort towns line the shoreline, each with its own character, some lively and full of waterfront restaurants and sailing boats, others quieter and surrounded by reeds and lavender fields that drift gently in the afternoon breeze. Vineyards overlook the water from hillsides that catch the southern light, producing wines that have sustained local communities for generations. And the pace feels noticeably slower than the capital, shaped by warm evenings, open water, and a culture of leisure that prioritizes time spent outdoors with people you care about. Many visitors are surprised to discover just how important Lake Balaton is to Hungarian life. Because this isn't simply a lake, it's a cultural centerpiece. A place where generations of Hungarian families have spent their summers, built their memories, and retreated from the demands of city life for more than a century. Hungary's wine country. Hungary's wine traditions stretch back centuries, shaped by volcanic soils, continental climates, and great varieties found almost nowhere else in the world. Regions like Tokaj and Eger produce wines known far beyond the country's borders. Tokaj, in particular, carries a reputation that reaches back to medieval royal courts, where its golden dessert wines were once described as the king of wines and the wine of kings. Vineyards cover hillsides that roll gently toward the horizon in shades of green and gold, depending on the season. Historic cellars sit beneath villages, carved deep into volcanic rock, where temperature and humidity remain consistent year-round, creating ideal conditions for aging wines that carry the character of the landscape above them. This side of Hungary often feels quieter, but it's also where many travelers discover some of the country's greatest charm. Most visitors leave Hungary thinking they've seen it, but the deeper you explore, the more it changes. The capital gives way to countryside, thermal baths give way to vineyard trails, and the famous places gradually reveal something quieter and more personal beneath the surface. If you enjoy discovering destinations beyond the obvious, this channel is built for that. Village life and local character. One thing many travelers remember about Hungary isn't only the architecture, it's the atmosphere. Smaller towns often move at a different pace, shaped by agricultural cycles and community routines that haven't changed dramatically in decades. Markets remain important gathering places where locals buy produce directly from farmers, exchange news, and maintain social connections that hold communities together through seasons and generations. Families spend time in public squares in the evenings, sitting on benches beneath old trees while children play in the fading light. The further you move from the major tourist routes, the more visible this side of Hungary becomes, and the more it feels like the real country rather than a version of it prepared for outside visitors. The Danube Bend. North of Budapest, the Danube River begins to curve through one of Hungary's most scenic regions. Known as the Danube Bend, this area combines history and nature in ways that feel almost theatrical, as if the landscape arranged itself deliberately around the river. Historic towns sit beside the water, including Esztergom, where Hungary's largest basilica crowns a hill above the river, and Visegrad, where the ruins of a medieval royal palace overlook the Danube from a ridge of forested hills. Forested hills rise steeply from both banks, turning brilliant shades of orange and red in autumn, and deep green in summer when the river runs quiet and wide beneath them. It's one of the country's most underrated regions, and one of its most rewarding for travelers who take the time to move slowly through it. Food and culture. Hungarian food reflects the country's agricultural traditions in ways that feel immediate and unpretentious. Goulash remains one of its most famous dishes, though what most people imagine as goulash elsewhere bears little resemblance to the Hungarian original, a slow-cooked broth of beef, onions, and paprika that varies subtly from one region to the next. Paprika appears throughout many recipes, not just as seasoning, but as a defining flavor that connects Hungarian cuisine to its landscape and growing seasons. And meals often become opportunities to gather with family and friends around a table for hours, sharing dishes served in generous portions alongside palinka, Hungary's traditional fruit brandy. Food here isn't just about flavor, it's about connection. Why travelers are looking beyond Budapest. Travel habits in Hungary are changing. Many visitors still come for Budapest, drawn by the architecture, the thermal baths, and a reputation that has made it one of the most visited cities in Central Europe. But increasingly, travelers are staying longer, exploring wine regions where small producers offer direct tastings in cellars that feel a world away from commercial tourism. Visiting lakeside communities where summer rhythms and waterfront cafes create a pace of life that is difficult to find in cities. Because many travelers are now looking for places that feel authentic, not just famous. Who this side of Hungary is for. This side of Hungary is for travelers who enjoy contrast, for people who want cities and countryside within the same journey, history and local culture in the same afternoon, famous landmarks and quieter discoveries separated by only a short drive or train ride. Hungary offers all of it, often within a surprisingly short distance, making it one of the easiest countries in Europe to explore deeply without covering enormous ground. Hungary isn't just Budapest. It's lakes, villages, vineyards, traditions, and landscapes that quietly reveal themselves the further you travel. The country doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't need to. Its depth becomes visible slowly, through small discoveries made in riverside towns, in wine cellars beneath volcanic hills, and in village squares where ordinary life continues at a pace that feels genuinely different from the world outside. And once you move beyond the obvious places, you realize how much more there is. Subscribe for more journeys beyond the tourist version. And tell us, would you explore Budapest first, or head straight for the Hungarian countryside?